The city never slept. Tall towers of glass and steel reached high into the night sky, glowing with neon signs in every color. The streets below were alive with sound, the hum of hover bikes, the chatter of humans, the sharp voices of aliens speaking in dozens of tongues. Markets spilled light into the road. Screens flashed news and advertisements. Music drifted out of crowded bars. The city was a storm of life, a place where no one stopped moving, no one looked too closely, and no one cared about strangers. But in the middle of this storm stood a single figure who did not belong. She was old, bent slightly forward as if her back could no longer carry the weight of time. Her skin was not human. It was a pale, glowing purple that shimmered faintly in the artificial lights. Her silver-white hair was thin but long, hanging around her shoulders like threads of light. Her clothes were simple and worn, patched many times, showing that she had traveled far without comfort. She stood near the edge of the crowded street, her hands shaking as she reached out for help. "Please," she whispered, her voice thin, almost lost in the noise of the city. But no one listened. People walked past her as if she were invisible. A group of humans laughed as they pushed by, barely looking at her. Two aliens glanced at her, frowned, and then turned their heads away, muttering something under their breath. Others simply ignored her completely, too busy with their own business. The old alien woman stepped forward, trying again. "Please, someone," she said, but her words were swallowed by the roar of engines and the endless conversations around her. Her eyes, large, glowing, and full of sorrow, darted from face to face. She was desperate, but to the rushing crowd, she was nothing more than another shadow. The city lights flickered across her face, showing the deep lines of age and the fear that lived in her expression. She clutched at the edge of her torn cloak as if holding herself together. She was lost, alone, and forgotten, and still no one stopped. Minutes passed, then an hour. The street grew even more crowded as the night went on. Food stalls opened, their smells drifting through the air. Street performers played music, drawing small crowds. Patrol guards in shining armor walked past, their helmets reflecting the neon glow. But none of them looked at her. To them, she did not matter. She was just an old alien, a problem for someone else. Her breathing grew heavier. She leaned against the cold wall of a building, sliding down until she was almost sitting on the ground. Her eyes searched the crowd, wide and afraid. She whispered something in her own language, words soft and broken, like a prayer or a memory. Then, for a brief moment, her gaze lifted toward the night sky above the city. Between the towers and the floating billboards, she could see a sliver of stars. Her lips trembled. There was something hidden in her look, something more than fear, a secret. Still, the people of the city moved past. They were blind to her, deaf to her voice. The storm of life swept around her, as if she did not exist. But in the middle of that crowd, one boy did notice. He was young, maybe 16, with messy brown hair and tired eyes. He wore an old green shirt, dirt-stained from the day, and rode a battered bicycle that squeaked with every turn of the wheels. He was not rich, not powerful, not anyone important. He was just another face in the sea of people. But unlike the others, he slowed down when he saw her. The boy's eyes narrowed. He felt something strange in his chest. Everyone else had walked by, but he couldn't. There was something about her. The way her hands trembled, the look in her glowing eyes, the quiet desperation in her voice. He slowed his bike to a stop a few feet away, unsure of what to do. For a moment, he almost convinced himself to keep moving. Helping a stranger was dangerous, and this stranger was not even human. But then her gaze locked onto his dot. It was only an instant, but it felt heavy, as if she were silently screaming for him to see her, to understand. The boy's heart raced. He looked at the crowd around him, hundreds of people, rushing, laughing, shouting, ignoring. None of them had stopped. None of them had even looked twice. Why him? Why now? The old alien woman whispered again, her voice trembling, her hands reaching weakly toward him. "Please." The boy tightened his grip on the handlebars of his bike. Something inside him knew that if he left, he would regret it forever. Something told him that this was no ordinary old alien, that her story was more than anyone realized. The city lights flickered once again. casting long shadows across the street. The air grew tense, heavy with suspense, as if the night itself was holding its breath. The forgotten figure was no longer invisible, and for the first time in a long, long while, someone had noticed her. The boy stayed frozen for a moment, hands gripping the bicycle's handlebars so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The world around him kept moving, the crowd rushing forward like a river, but for him time slowed. His chest rose and fell fast. He could not look away from the alien woman's trembling hands and the glow of her desperate eyes. He wanted to tell himself it wasn't his problem. He wanted to believe that walking away was the smart choice. After all, everyone else had done it. Dozens of people had passed her by, and none of them had stopped. What made him different? Why should he risk anything for her? But then she whispered again. The sound was weak, broken, yet it carried straight into his chest. "Please, help me." The boy swallowed hard. He glanced around. People brushed past him, annoyed that he had stopped in the middle of the street. A man shouted for him to move. A pair of guards in polished helmets walked by on the far side, scanning the crowd without paying attention. Nobody cared. Nobody saw. And suddenly he understood something. If he didn't help her, nobody would. She would stay there, begging, until she collapsed. The thought made his stomach twist. He slid one foot down from the pedal, steadying his bike, and leaned closer. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice low and unsure. The alien woman lifted her head. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes. They were not only filled with fear. There was something deeper, sorrow, yes, but also a flicker of hope. She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," but not fast. A loud sound cracked across the street. The boy's head snapped up. A patrol drone floated overhead, its red eye scanning the crowd. Behind it, two armored enforcers appeared, their steps heavy, their gaze sharp. They moved with purpose, checking faces, searching for someone. The woman's entire body shook. She reached out suddenly, clutching the boy's sleeve. "They are here," she breathed, terror in her voice. "Please, take me away." The boy's heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to leave, to pedal away and vanish into the safety of the crowd. But his legs did the opposite. He leaned forward and said quickly, "Get on the back. Hold tight." Her eyes widened in shock. For a second, she hesitated, as if she didn't believe his offer was real. Then, with surprising speed for someone so frail, she moved. Her hands grabbed his shoulders as she climbed onto the narrow frame of the bicycle. She clung tightly, her silver hair falling across his arm. The boy gritted his teeth and pushed down hard on the pedals. The bike jerked forward, nearly throwing them both off, but then steadied as they surged into the river of people. At once, the woman's fear became real. Shouts rang out. "There, stop them." One of the enforcers pointed straight toward the fleeing pair. The drone spun and released a sharp burst of sound, calling more patrols. The boy's ears rang. He bent low over the handlebars, weaving between shoppers, workers, and travelers who cursed as he brushed past them. The city blurred around him. Neon signs became streaks of color. The pavement rattled under the wheels. The old bicycle groaned as if it might break at any second, but still it carried them forward. The alien woman clung so tightly that her nails dug into his shirt. "Faster!" she cried, her voice filled with panic. "They cannot catch me. If they do, everything is lost." "Everything?" the boy shouted back, his voice straining against the wind. "What does that mean?" She did not answer. Instead, she turned her head and saw the enforcers pushing through the crowd, shoving people aside. More drones buzzed into the street, their lights flashing red. The woman's face grew pale. The boy's lungs burned. He turned sharply into a narrow side street, almost colliding with a vendor's cart. Fruit and metal parts scattered as he sped past. Angry voices chased after him, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. The alley was dark and narrow, lined with flickering lamps and piles of trash. It twisted left and right like a maze. The boy leaned into every turn, sweat dripping down his forehead. Behind him, the sound of boots and drones grew louder. The woman's voice trembled in his ear. "You are brave. Foolish, but brave." He almost laughed at the strange mix of words, but fear pressed too heavily on his chest. "Why are they after you? What did you do?" For a long moment she was silent. The only sounds were the rattle of the bike, the echo of footsteps behind them, and the beating of his own heart. Then she said softly, "It is not what I did. It is what I know. And if they catch me, they will bury that knowledge forever." The boy frowned. He didn't understand, not fully, but he didn't have time to ask. The alley suddenly opened back into a wide street filled with glowing signs and busy shops. He pushed harder, merging with the crowd again, trying to lose their pursuers. The woman's grip tightened on his shoulders. She leaned close and whispered, "Do not stop, no matter what happens. Do not let them take me." Her words sent a chill through him. He didn't know her, didn't even know her name. But in that moment, he felt the weight of her life pressing into his hands. The night city roared around them, bright and alive. Yet for the boy and the alien woman, the world had narrowed to a single fragile escape. One old bicycle racing against the unstoppable power of the patrols. And for the first time in his life, the boy understood that he was part of something far bigger than himself. The bicycle rattled as it sped across uneven stone, every bump threatening to throw the boy and the alien woman off balance. His legs burned with the effort, but he forced them to keep moving. The street stretched ahead like an endless river of light, neon signs flashing across his face, casting strange colors into the night. Behind him came the sharp hum of patrol drones, their red eyes glowing like hunters in the dark. The woman held on tighter, her breath quick against his neck. She was old, her hands shaking, yet her grip was strong as iron. Fear pressed between them like a weight. Every sound, the hiss of an engine, the crackle of a voice on a loudspeaker, made the boy's chest tighten. He felt the city turning against him, every shadow hiding danger, every corner waiting to betray them. He darted left, cutting into another narrow path between the towering buildings. Sparks rained down from a broken light fixture, brushing his cheek. The alley smelled of oil and smoke, but he kept going, leaning into the turn so sharply that the bicycle's tires squealed. The woman gasped, but did not let go. A voice boomed behind them, metallic and cold. "Stop immediately. Unauthorized transport detected." The boy didn't look back. He already knew the enforcers were closing in. Their heavy boots slammed against the pavement, their metal armor clanking like hammers. His lungs burned. His heart pounded so loud it felt like it might burst. But he kept pedaling, pushing the old bike faster than he thought possible. The woman whispered something in her own language, the words strange, but filled with urgency. When she switched back to the common tongue, her voice cracked. "Do not stop. If you stop, they will take me, and all will be lost." He shouted over the noise, his throat raw. "Why you? Why not anyone else?" She shook her head. Her hair streamed like silver fire behind them. "Because I am the last of what they fear." The words made no sense, yet they sank deep into him, filling his stomach with a cold weight. He wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but the sound of metal wings above silenced him. Another drone swooped low, aiming a bright beam directly at them. The light blinded him. He jerked the handlebars, and the bicycle wobbled violently. For a terrifying second, he thought they would crash. "Hold on," he yelled. The woman pressed her face against his back, and he felt her trembling. With every ounce of strength, he steadied the bike and swerved into the cover of an archway. The drone's light passed over them, missing by inches, and crashed into a signboard that burst into sparks. The boy didn't stop to watch. He pushed forward, deeper into the maze of streets. Shouts echoed from behind. The enforcers barked orders. "Cut them off. Block every exit." The boy's chest tightened. If they sealed the streets, he would have nowhere to go. He needed a plan, but plans belonged to smarter people. All he had was instinct and the shaky wheels of his bicycle. He turned sharply again, the tires slipping against wet stone. They slid dangerously close to a pile of crates. A bottle shattered under the wheel, spraying glass across the ground. Somehow, the bicycle stayed upright. He felt sweat sting his eyes, but he couldn't wipe it away. His hands were locked to the handlebars. The city stretched ahead, not the glowing markets now, but the hidden parts, where broken machines lay abandoned and dark corners swallowed the light. He had never ridden this deep before. The boy's chest tightened with fear, but the woman whispered again, "Good. Yes, deeper. They fear these places." He wanted to ask why, but he had no breath left for questions. He only had the strength to keep moving. A sudden sound cut through the night, the roar of engines. His head jerked up. 2 armored vehicles rolled into the street ahead, blocking the path. Their lights flared like the eyes of monsters. The boy's stomach dropped. There was no way around. "Stop." The metallic voice boomed again. "Surrender the fugitive." The boy's legs slowed, his muscles screaming, his thoughts racing. He couldn't go forward. He couldn't go back. For one terrible moment, it felt like everything was over. Then the alien woman's voice cut through his panic, sharp and clear. "Turn down. The ground. There is a way." He blinked, confused, and then saw it. A grate in the street, half hidden by shadows, slightly loose. Without thinking, he jerked the handlebars and steered directly toward it. The bike hit hard, the grate shattering open, and they tumbled down into the darkness below. The world spun. He hit the ground, rolling painfully, the bicycle crashing beside him. Dust filled his mouth. His arms stung from scrapes. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. The woman pulled herself close, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Good," she whispered, though her chest rose and fell with exhaustion. "You chose to fall, instead of surrender. That is human. That is why I trusted you." He coughed, spitting dust, staring at her in disbelief. "Trusted me? We're trapped down here." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, even through her fear. "No, we are hidden." For now, above them, heavy boots thundered. Lights swept across the street. Voices shouted orders. But none of the enforcers saw where they had gone. The boy's heart still raced, but slowly, painfully, he began to realize the truth. He was no longer just helping an old woman. He was now part of something much larger, something dangerous, something secret, something that had already changed his life forever. And deep in his chest, despite the fear, a strange fire began to burn. The air below the city was heavy and stale, filled with the smell of rust and damp stone. The boy sat up slowly, his chest rising and falling as he tried to catch his breath. His arms and knees ached from the fall, but he was alive. The faint sound of the street above echoed through the hole they had crashed through, but the voices of the enforcers grew distant, fading as they moved on. For now, they were safe. The woman leaned against the wall of the tunnel. Her silver hair tangled around her face. Her glowing eyes were dim but steady. She pressed a hand to her chest and whispered something in her own language, soft and low, as if thanking unseen stars. The boy watched her, still gasping, his mind racing. "Who are you?" he finally asked, his voice rough from dust and fear. "Why are they after you? You keep saying things that make no sense." The woman did not answer at once. She turned her head, looking down the tunnel that stretched into darkness. Water dripped from pipes overhead, the sound echoing like slow, patient footsteps. The silence between them grew heavy, broken only by the boy's breathing. At last, she spoke, her voice quiet but sharp. "If I tell you, your life will never be the same. You will not sleep without fear. You will not walk without shadows following. Are you ready for that, boy?" He stared at her, caught between confusion and anger. "I already can't go back. I helped you. I ran with you. They'll remember my face now. So tell me." Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, her eyes softened, almost like a parent looking at a child. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well." She pulled her cloak tighter around her and lowered her voice. "I was once a guardian. Long ago, before you were born, before your people filled these streets, I swore an oath. I held knowledge, power, that was never meant to fall into cruel hands. For years I kept it hidden, safe. But I grew old. My people are gone. Now I am the last." The boy frowned. "Knowledge, power? What do you mean?" She raised her trembling hand. For a brief moment, light flickered across her palm. A soft glow like fireflies trapped beneath her skin. It danced, fragile and beautiful, before vanishing. The boy's eyes widened. "What was that?" Her voice dropped even lower. "A memory. A piece of something greater. What I carry is not mine alone. It belongs to an age before the city, before the walls, you know." And she jerked her head upward, toward the world above. "Want it silenced. They fear what I know, because truth can burn stronger than weapons." The boy's stomach tightened. He had never believed in legends. Stories of hidden powers and ancient guardians belonged in old books, not in the cracked hands of a tired alien woman. And yet he had seen it, glowing in her skin. He rubbed his forehead, trying to think. So, you're saying they'll chase you forever? And now me too. Her gaze fixed on him, steady and unblinking. Yes, you chose to help me. Now your path is tied to mine. You can still leave. If you walk away, perhaps they will not care about you. The boy almost laughed, but it came out bitter. Walk away and leave you here? They'd find you in minutes. I already made my choice. Something in her eyes flickered again. Respect, maybe even gratitude. She gave the smallest nod. Then we walked together. He picked up his bicycle, bent but still standing, and pushed it forward into the tunnel. The wheels squeaked, echoing in the silence. The woman followed slowly, leaning on the wall for support. The deeper they went, the darker it became, until the boy had to squint to see. Shapes shifted in the shadows. Old machines, abandoned pipes, broken signs from a time when this place had been part of the city above. The boy's skin crawled. It felt like they were being watched. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. The boy froze. The woman raised her hand, signaling silence. Out of the darkness, a faint red light blinked. Another drone. Smaller, older, its wings cracked, but still alive. The boy's throat went dry. They found us? He whispered. The woman shook her head slowly. No, not theirs. This one belongs to no one anymore. The drone drifted closer, circling them. The woman lifted her hand again, and the glow returned faintly under her skin. The drone shivered in the air, its lights flickering, before settling into stillness like a loyal dog. The boy stared in awe. You controlled it, not controlled, she said softly. Remembered. Machines carry memory, too. I remind them what they were made for. The drone buzzed faintly, and then floated ahead, casting a weak beam of light into the tunnel. The woman nodded. It will guide us. They followed, the tunnel stretching endlessly. The boy's mind was a storm of questions. Who was she really? What did she carry that could turn machines into allies and make soldiers hunt her? And most of all, what had he stepped into? His fear mixed with something else now, something sharper. Curiosity. A pull he couldn't resist. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into a wide chamber, its ceiling dripping with water, its walls carved with strange, faded symbols. The drone's light brushed across them, revealing patterns the boy had never seen. The woman stopped, her hand resting on the wall as her eyes filled with something between sorrow and pride. This, she whispered, her voice trembling, was once a hall of my people, a place of vows, and here, you'll see why I cannot let them take me. The boy shivered, staring at the strange marks glowing faintly on the stone. His heart pounded. Whatever secret she carried, it was bigger than he had ever imagined. And in that dark chamber, deep under the city, he knew there was no turning back. The boy stood frozen in the underground chamber, his eyes darting over the strange symbols that glowed faintly on the walls. They looked alive, as if they were breathing with the stones themselves. He felt small in that place, as though he had stepped into something ancient and far beyond his understanding. The old alien woman touched the carvings gently, her hand trembling, her face filled with memories too heavy to carry. But the moment of silence did not last. A loud metallic crack echoed through the tunnels. The boy's head snapped up. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The sound came again, closer, sharper, boots, dozens of them. The woman's eyes widened. They followed, she whispered. Her voice shook, not from surprise, but from dread she had carried for a long time. The boy's stomach clenched. He grabbed his bicycle, his knuckles white on the handlebars. How? We fell underground. How could they know? They always know, she said bitterly. They have hunted me across worlds. You think a few walls of stone will stop them? The sound grew louder. Orders barked through metal helmets. Lights cut across the cracks in the stone. The boy's pulse hammered in his ears. They had only seconds before the chamber was filled with armored enforcers. The woman turned to him, her glowing eyes fierce despite the fear in her trembling body. We must move. Now, the drone that had guided them earlier flickered its weak light, as if sensing the danger. It spun once, then darted into a narrow tunnel that branched from the chamber. The boy didn't think. He pushed the bicycle forward, the woman stumbling after him. The tunnel was tight, scraping his shoulders, the air heavy with dust. Behind them came the roar of soldiers pouring into the chamber, weapons clattering. Search every corner. Find them. The boy's heart pounded so loudly he thought it might give him away. He ducked lower, pushing the bike as fast as he could, his legs trembling with the effort. The woman clung to his shoulder, her breath uneven. Then came the flash of light, not from their drone, but from the soldiers. Red beams cut into the tunnel behind them, chasing their shadows. Run! The woman hissed. He pedaled hard, even though the bike was useless in the narrow space. Its wheels squealed against the uneven floor. Stones cracked under the weight. The drone zipped ahead, showing glimpses of the way forward, but the soldiers were gaining. The boy heard the thud of boots, the whir of machines. A shot rang out. Stone exploded beside him, shards cutting his cheek. He gasped, his body jolting with fear. The woman cried out but pushed him forward. Do not stop. He wanted to scream that he couldn't keep going, that he wasn't strong enough. But he didn't. He lowered his head and forced his body forward. Every muscle burning, every breath like fire. The tunnel widened suddenly, spilling them into another chamber, this one darker, filled with collapsed walls and broken machines. The drone hovered uncertainly, its flickering light throwing long shadows across the ruins. The woman stopped, her hand pressed to her chest. Her breathing was heavy, her face pale. She looked older in that moment than ever before. I cannot run much longer, she whispered. The boy turned to her, his eyes wide with panic. Then what do we do? They're right behind us. Her eyes narrowed, filled with a determination that cut through her weakness. Then we fight, not with weapons, but with memory. Before he could ask what she meant, she stretched her hands toward the broken machines around them. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a faint glow rose from her skin, spreading into the dark. The machines, old and rusted, shivered as if waking from sleep. Lights blinked on, gears turned, long dead engines coughed. The boy's mouth fell open. You're bringing them back. The woman's voice was hoarse, but steady. They remember me. They remember what they were built for. They will help us. The chamber shook as the soldiers entered from the tunnel. Their lights cut through the dark, their weapons raised. There they are. The woman's glow grew brighter, her face twisted with effort. The broken machines roared to life. Metal arms swung down, blocking the tunnel. Engines spat sparks. The soldiers fired, but the blasts ricocheted off thick iron. The machines, half dead yet alive with her power, stood like guardians. The boy could hardly breathe. He had never seen anything like it. She wasn't just an old alien. She was something far greater, something dangerous and beautiful at once. The woman staggered, nearly falling, but the boy caught her. You'll kill yourself doing this. Her eyes flicked to him, weak but burning with fire. Better me than the galaxy. If they take what I know, no one will be free. The machines groaned as the soldiers pushed harder, their weapons cutting deep. One machine collapsed, metal screeching. The boy felt fear crush his chest. They couldn't hold the enforcers forever. Where do we go? He shouted. The drone spun in the air, then darted toward another tunnel on the far side of the chamber. The boy understood instantly. He pulled the woman's arm over his shoulder and half dragged her, half pushed the bicycle forward. The ground shook with every step of the battle behind them. They stumbled into the new tunnel just as the machines gave their final cry. A blast of heat struck the boy's back as metal exploded. The woman gasped, nearly collapsing, but he held her tight. The darkness swallowed them again. Their footsteps echoed, their breaths ragged. Behind them came the sound of soldiers tearing through the ruins, unrelenting, unstoppable. The boy's mind raced. He had thought this was just about helping a stranger. But now he saw the truth. This was war. Not of guns and armies, but of secrets, knowledge, and the will to protect it. And somehow, against all reason, he was part of it now. The tunnel grew quieter as they pushed deeper, the noise of battle fading behind them until only the sound of dripping water and their uneven breathing remained. The boy's arms ached from carrying the woman's weight, but he refused to stop. Each step echoed through the dark like a drumbeat, reminding him that the soldiers were not far behind. Finally, the tunnel widened into a cavern. its walls glittering faintly with crystals embedded in the stone. The faint glow lit their faces, soft and cold. The boy lowered the woman onto a flat rock, his chest heaving. She looked weaker than before, her skin pale, her breath shallow, but her eyes were still fierce. He crouched in front of her, his voice shaking. "You need to tell me now. Who are you really? What's so important that they would chase you into the ground? You keep saying it's about knowledge, but I don't understand." The woman closed her eyes, as though searching for strength. For a long moment she was silent, her hand pressed over her chest where her cloak hid something glowing faintly beneath. Then she opened her eyes again, and they burned with both pain and pride. "I am not just an old woman who lost her way," she said softly. "I was once a guardian of a truth older than your kind, older than these towers above. My people built wonders across the stars, but with power came greed. War tore us apart. I was chosen to carry the last memory of who we were, to keep it safe until it could awaken again." The boy frowned, confused. "A memory, you mean? All this running is because of something you remember?" She gave a faint, bitter smile. "Not memory like your stories. Memory that breathes. Memory that shapes. In my blood, in my bones, I carry the key to awaken what was lost. Machines answer to me because they remember my people's hand. And those who hunt me, they want to silence me before I can awaken it again." The boy felt a chill crawl down his spine. He thought of the machines rising in the chamber, fighting as if alive, and the way the drone had bowed to her light. It was impossible, but he had seen it with his own eyes. Her hand trembled as she pulled at her cloak. The fabric slipped aside, revealing her chest. There, just below her collarbone, a mark glowed faintly, a symbol, curved and sharp, like a star surrounded by waves. The light pulsed with her heartbeat. The boy's breath caught. He had never seen anything like it. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "This," she whispered, touching the mark with shaking fingers, "is my curse and my gift. As long as I live, it lives. If they take me, they will either rip it from me or kill me to bury it forever. That is why I hid. That is why I was ignored on the streets. Better to be invisible than to be known." The boy shook his head slowly, trying to take it all in. "So, you're saying you're the last of your people, and you've been hiding this power, all this time?" Her eyes softened as they met his. "I am the last guardian, the last one who remembers what once was. And now you know my truth. That makes you part of it, whether you wished it or not." He looked away, his heart pounding. He was only a boy with a broken bicycle. He wasn't meant for this. Yet he couldn't ignore what she said. The soldiers above, the machines that had answered to her, the glowing mark, none of it could be denied. She leaned forward, her voice lowering to almost a whisper. "Do you understand now why I begged for help? Not because I was weak, because I cannot carry this alone any longer. And somehow, though I do not know why, I believe you were meant to see me." The boy's stomach twisted. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. But deep down, a strange fire burned in him. The same fire he had felt when he first noticed her while everyone else walked by. He had chosen to stop. He had chosen to help. And now he understood why it mattered. The woman suddenly gasped, her hand clutching the glowing mark. The light pulsed brighter, almost blinding. Her face twisted in pain. "What's happening?" The boy cried, reaching for her. Her voice shook. "They are close. Their presence presses against me. The mark feels them." As if to prove her words, a faint echo rang through the cavern. The mechanical buzz of drones, the metallic echo of boots. The soldiers were coming again. The boy's fear returned, sharp and heavy, but it no longer froze him. He looked at the woman, saw her trembling body and burning eyes, and felt a decision rise inside him. He grabbed the bicycle, steadying it. "Get on," he said firmly. "We're not stopping here." She stared at him, surprised, almost amused. "Even now, you choose to carry me further." He gave a short, nervous laugh. "I already started. Might as well finish." For a moment, her face softened into something almost gentle. She touched his shoulder with her thin, glowing fingers. "You are braver than you believe. Hold to that, and you will survive what is coming." The sound of soldiers grew louder. Lights flickered in the tunnel behind them. The boy helped her onto the bicycle, his hands shaking but steady. He took one deep breath, then pushed forward, his legs burning as the wheels squealed against stone. The cavern stretched ahead, filled with unknown paths and deeper shadows. Behind them, the hunters closed in. Between them, a secret glowed, fragile, powerful, and a live dot, and as the boy pedaled into the dark, he understood one thing clearly: whatever the woman truly was, whatever truth she carried, it was no longer only hers, it was theirs. The boy's legs screamed with pain as he forced the bicycle forward through the cavern. The tunnel walls flashed past, jagged and wet, lit only by the faint glow of the alien woman's mark. Behind them came the steady thump of boots, the hum of drones, and the harsh bark of voices closing in. Every sound was a reminder that time was running out. The woman clung to his shoulders, her body trembling with weakness, but her eyes remained sharp. Her voice pressed into his ear, strained but commanding. "Forward, always forward. Do not look back." He nodded, though his chest burned with exhaustion. He wanted to stop, to collapse, to let the soldiers take her so he could breathe again. But every time that thought crossed his mind, he remembered the crowd in the city, how everyone had ignored her, how she had stood alone. He couldn't be like them. He had seen her. He had chosen. The tunnel narrowed again, forcing him to slow. Water splashed under the wheels. The walls pressed close, dripping with strange moss that glowed faintly blue. The air grew colder. And then, just as his arms began to shake with the weight of her on his back, the tunnel burst open into a wide chamber. The space was unlike anything he had seen before. Tall stone pillars stretched upward, carved with the same glowing symbols as before. Pools of clear water reflected the light, turning the ceiling into a shimmering sky. At the center stood a raised platform, cracked with age, but still glowing faintly as if waiting. The woman gasped, her voice breaking. "At last, we are here." The boy stopped, his chest heaving, and lowered the bicycle. He looked around, all mixing with fear. "What is this place?" She slid off his back slowly, her legs weak, her hand pressed over the glowing mark. "A sanctuary. The last one my people built before the wars. It was meant for the guardian, for me. Here the truth can be spoken." Before he could ask more, the chamber shook with the echo of boots. The soldiers had found the way in. Lights cut across the pillars. Drones buzzed like angry insects. The boy's stomach twisted. He turned to her, panic rising. "What do we do?" "They're here." Her eyes met his, steady and fierce despite her trembling body. "Now you must choose." He blinked, confused. "Choose what?" She stepped toward the platform, her mark glowing brighter. "If I stand alone, they will kill me, and the truth dies with me. But if I pass it on, if I give the memory to another, then it lives. It will not be silenced. But once it is given, there is no turning back." The boy stared at her, his mouth dry. "You mean it to me?" She nodded slowly. "You saw me when no one else did. You carried me when no one else would. That is enough." The boy shook his head, fear tightening his chest. "I can't. I'm just me. I don't know anything about guardians, or power, or fighting soldiers." Her voice softened, though her eyes never wavered. "That is what makes you worthy. Power is not for those who want it. It is for those who carry it because they must." The chamber shook again as the soldiers stormed in, their voices echoing. "Surrender now." Red beams of light swept across the walls, finding them at the platform. Weapons clicked into place. The boy's breath came fast. His mind screamed at him to run, to hide, to give up. But his heart remembered her standing on the street, ignored and broken. He remembered her whisper, the trembling hand that had reached for him when no one else cared. Slowly, with his whole body shaking, he nodded. "Do it." The woman's eyes glistened, as though she had been waiting for those words. She reached out and pressed her glowing hand against his chest. The mark flared, light bursting out like fire. The boy gasped as heat surged through him, not burning, but alive, filling his veins with energy he had never known. Images flashed in his mind, stars, machines rising like giants, voices of her people echoing through time. He staggered, but he did not fall. The soldiers shouted and fired, but the light exploded outward, bending around them like a shield. Beams ricocheted off invisible walls. Drones fell from the sky, their circuits fried. The boy's eyes glowed with the same light as hers, his breath sharp with power. The woman's body slumped, weaker than ever, but her smile was soft. "Now it is yours. Protect it. Carry it forward." The boy turned, his heart pounding with something greater than fear. He raised his hand without thinking, and the ground itself responded. The pillars glowed, the water rippled, and the soldiers froze as machines hidden beneath the stone roared back to life. The chamber became a storm of light and sound, a memory of her people awakened through him. The soldiers faltered, some retreating, others crushed by the weight of the machines. Their voices cracked with fear. "Fall back! Fall back!" The boy stood tall, though inside he was still the same scared teen with a broken bicycle. But now, something greater moved through him, something that could not be silenced. When the last echo of footsteps faded, the chamber grew quiet again. The boy turned back to the woman. She sat on the platform, her body small and frail, her breathing shallow. But her eyes shone with peace. "You saw me," she whispered. "And because you did, the truth lives." The boy knelt beside her, his throat tight. He wanted to thank her, to promise her he would protect what she had given him, but the words stuck. He simply nodded, tears stinging his eyes. Her hand touched his cheek one last time. "Remember, kindness is the seed of everything. It is why I chose you." Then her eyes closed, and her hand fell. The chamber dimmed, the glow fading. But the boy's chest still burned with light. He sat there for a long moment, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of what had been passed to him. When he finally stood, he was no longer just a boy. He was the keeper of a secret that could change the galaxy. And it had all begun because he had stopped when no one else would.